Hello and welcome to another episode of Guidelines to Not Sucking at Video Reviewing. Last time we talked about Vegeta blasting the cinema snob, Doug Walker and James Rolfe holding scat parties, Ace Salieri Zilla rampaging through Reviewtopia, and a little bit about the topic at hand, writing jokes. There was also a lot of metaphors and a lot of semen. You probably should watch the first video to understand the context for all of this. Has defecation ever been that poetic? Okay, so if you cannot write, then what else do you have at your disposal? There's always mugging. Funny facial expressions or body language can be very amusing when done right. In fact, the most prevalent type of humor within video reviews is reactionary comedy. When AVGN covers a game, it's not what he says that amuses us, it's often how he says it. Doug, on the other hand, often relies on his face, as well as his voice. That's another thing. Some people have voices that either sound goofy or can become funny if you know how to manipulate it. Abridgers such as Little Kubiro, Lenny Pator, and, well, everyone on Team 4-Star when you think about it, are masters of using one's vocals. I am not saying create many different voices for your show either. I am merely stressing that your voice can reinforce jokes or redeem them entirely. Or maybe you could take this further. Perhaps you're at your funniest when you're putting yourself in a story. You might be boring, but you could always step into the skin of a character who could make the types of jokes that you could never do because of context. When Diamanda Hagan plans a review, is she thinking, what would Jerica say or do in this situation? No, she is playing a psychotic bitch who wants world domination and all that shit. And that's where the comical antics come from. Or what about the cinema snob? Would making fun of a movie like Caligula make any sense if Brad Jones was doing it? No, but it would if the character was. Or what about myself? Well, in order to play this cannibalistic, psychotic, murderous molester that you see on screen, I had to make sure that I toned down my normal creepiness. Because often being your normal self is not what people want. Beware though, a lot of people have turned on this brand of reviewing. Many consider it downright stale, so think about that before you automatically decide to do it. But all of this comes down to comic timing. I probably could have just said that and the video would have been done there. So even if you can dream up funny things to say, do you have the right rhythm? Proper comic timing is saying the right words at the right pace. I've had to cut out many jokes from my videos because I sounded too forced or awkward. Had somebody else delivered the lines, they probably would have made them golden. But gather around, my children, for it is story time. Back when I did my very first video, or even my review of Shock or The Nostalgia Critic, you weren't seeing the MartialHorror brand of comedy, even if those videos ultimately turned out okay in their own way. Hey, considering I kept getting upstaged by my lopsided beard, I thought I did okay. Oh, and if you want to know what happened to that old beard, it committed suicide by shooting itself in the back of its head and dumping its own body in a lake. Coincidentally, it shared the same fate as those subtitles who opposed me in my earliest videos.
Curses! Foiled by those damn subtitles again.
You were seeing me trying my absolute best to be Doug Walker or Brad Jones. I saw what they did and I loved it, so I wanted to do the same thing. While you might be able to pull something like this off temporarily, eventually you will become stale because it's just not natural to you. I am not Brad Jones. I am not Doug Walker. I am Blake, the creepy bald guy. That is why sometimes I sound like I'm 100% against you being a caustic critic. I'm not. I'm against you doing what I did because when you try to step into someone else's shoes, you might find that they don't fit. I'm being metaphorical, of course. If you put on Spoonie's literal shoes and they do happen to fit, that does not make you funny, it probably makes you a stalker. And if those sneakers won't fit me, then I ain't going to let them fit you, mother. Find your inner comedian. Don't try to imitate your idol just because they're great at what they do or because they're popular. I'm not saying you aren't allowed to have inspirations, just don't try to become those inspirations. You will never be them, and when we make love, I won't be thinking of you. I will be thinking of the one who inspired you. That was also a metaphor, for some of you anyway. So what kind of humor does Uncle MartialHorror excel at? Personally, I feel comfortable with self-depreciation comedy. One thing with critiquing the critics is that I don't want it to be taken too seriously, because the concept is just so baffling to some, including myself. Plus, it gives me an excuse to point out that I am perfectly aware of my limitations, and I now have the opportunity to use them to my advantage. I also have had a lot of success with meta jokes, and drawing from real life experiences, I noticed that a lot of the shit that comes out of my mouth is rather bizarre. So why not tweak it and make funny bizarre? So this is how I formed my own brand of humor, and now you have to figure out how to do yours, if you want to go this route at all. But even though I give my older poser nostalgia critic works crap, I am glad that some people appreciate them and maybe even prefer those videos to the ones I do now. It is always important to remember that humor is erratic, subjective, and unpredictable. No comedian is universally loved, or hated. So those were my humor tips, and Semen, and I hope you enjoyed them. If not, off. So it's bedtime. See you guys later.